My name is Savio, as you've most likely got by now, I hope at least. And I'm here with my two vice presidents, Alf and Enrique. But before we will start the General Assembly, we have the pleasure of having a few guests around here.
The organizing committee that promoted this regional European Parliament for two distinct reasons. First, because this session is taking place in Bragança, a young, welcoming and dynamic city with high standards of development and quality of life that stands side by side with some of the most important cities in the country and in Europe. Second, by seeing a group of young entrepreneurs that voluntarily proposed through this session to encourage the interest to other young people in the political and social discussion and in the democratic decision-making process. For me, as mayor, it's inspiring to see an audience so young and so interested in getting involved in issues that society often devalues. I'm sure that the young people here will have to make big decisions in the future because you will be society's greatest assets. We'll leave here today stronger and with greater knowledge to face the challenges that you face daily in managing the various aspects of community life. I hope that your stay in Bragança was positive to the point of leaving the desire to return. Finally, I wish you all the best in your personal, academic, and professional life, and that you may have a safe return to your homes and families. Thank you.
Even though we agree with... Hello, thanks for the recognition. Regarding the operative clause number 2, that says on the collection of data in relation to the pandemic and vaccines, we think that it is important to mention that the governments and the European Union do not have the right to keep the data of the companies that own the vaccines, and in addition, we have as an example the errors made by the entities of health in deaths from the disease in the side effects of vaccines. The data must not be kept by the companies that own the intellectual property.
Okay, so thank you for that point. I promised to go back to David, but there is a direct response from...
No, you won't pay more because it's still the same system as if you spend more, you will pay more, just like nowadays. If you spend less, of course, if you're trying to save some energy, you will pay less, but still following the ABC by taxes. Then, to Libby, on the 8th OC about buses, yes, we plan to keep the structures of the buses so they don't go to waste and they don't just keep polluting. And we just try to exchange what is necessary so that we can make it work by hydrogen and not on fossil fuels. Then, this last question about about number 4, it's a short-term thing. So we will just be taxing the companies that want to use fossil fuels over green energies because we pretend to give them the option of using green energies, and if they still prefer, because it might be cheaper on the beginning, but since fossil fuels are really running out, in a long term it will end up like being a lot expensive, and so if they prefer to use fossil fuels, they will be taxed, not the people, the companies. That's what we're trying to keep it clear, okay? Thank you very much, and yeah.
Thank you for the recognition. So, the OC number 2, you suggested to increase the taxes on companies that use fossil fuels. We obviously do agree with the need to use more renewable energies, but with that suggestion, we'd be conditioning one of EU's main purposes, which is the low taxes of export and import between member states. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I will answer Idre. They asked us about our OC3, and I will say that our OC5 covers your answer. Because you talked about giving it treatment, and maybe it's not the biggest problem now. And we talked about the lack of broadband, lack of internet, and things like that in OC5. That was your question, I guess. And then Egan asked us about OC9, and we also talked about instruct pictures, which is basically the answer you needed. Deep asked us about OC. They didn't ask about any OC, they gave us a solution, and we are thankful for that, because we are here to work as a team. But we also had that in OC8, A and B, because we cover all population, since kids to elderly. And then talking about vegan, they asked us about our first paragraph, everything, our idea, and we that word that you said, that expression, we explain that in IC. If you read them carefully, you'll understand everything that we try to talk about. Thanks.
Hello, it's Mariana from Deve. Thank you for the recognition. I would like to congratulate you on your resolutions. You have some really great ideas. However, we noticed that your OCs are more focused on younger people. Don't you feel that everyone, including older people, should be educated to learn how to use new technologies so they can be more active citizens? Thank you.
Egon, you're recognized.
Dear Mr. President, members of the board, honorable guests, and fellow delegates. First of all, thank you for the effort you've put into trying to solve such an important issue nowadays, and that is one of the main causes of the deep inequalities that we face today. One special aspect that you have focused is the role of education on the promotion of equal opportunities around Europe. Difficult access to technologies should be recognized as one of the main causes of school abandonment, and if you consider that in the several confinements we had during this pandemic, this got even worse because to have classes we fully rely on technology, both teachers and students. Because if we teach the young ones, the parents will also learn. This is the way that I consider that will change society. Once again, despite any flaws that can surely be overcome, I think you did an exquisite job. Of digital divide in education. Everyone here is discussing the reset and renewal and regeneration of European society. But why? Because of a global pandemic, a giant pandemic which did not create the problematic of technological and digital literacy differences, but increased and accelerated them. And as technology is truly our present and will be even more significantly our future in practically every area, it is mandatory to grow together in this topic as a European Union, and not leave anyone behind. The digital divide comprises the access divide and the use divide. We've seen that technological illiteracy can be a consequence of social and economic backgrounds, but also of the lack of digital knowledge. People from the countryside do not have the same high-quality broadband we have in urban areas, for example. We also know that less money can mean no possible way to invest, which can and does mean a worse future. On the other hand, education is something that generates many problems if it's not assured. By that, I mean that people can't always distinguish fake news from reality. It happens the lack of digital safety if you're not well informed, and the social isolation resulted from the excessive use of technology. These problems still exist because most of the measures being used to combat this problem are inefficient. One way or another, the results are the exclusion of people who don't have technological skills, academically and work-wise. Not doing anything to try to change the current situation would be going backwards. This is why we are very grateful to have had the opportunity to work on this theme and to think about what the best measures to implement would be. We hope we can clarify any doubt you have. Thank you so much for your attention. Which people who are in those jobs, it depends on their survival, so they do those jobs because they need to. But my question is, wouldn't the priority be the head workers of those companies, such as the owners, and would you like to do regular conferences with them? That's my question, thank you.
Your 11th OC says encourage gas station companies to build at least one electric vehicle charger at each branch. So even though the number of electric vehicles is rising, it's still a small market and compared to gas, and installing the electric chargers is pretty expensive and a long-term investment. So how would you encourage companies to do it?
Regarding the 5OC, you said consider the possibility of reducing Wi-Fi prices for the disadvantaged people. But we think that it's a little bit difficult to do that. And we want to know how do you want to implement that measure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear Mr. President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, and fellow delegates. I'm Mariana Costa, a delegate from the Committee on Foreign Affairs. These past 2 days, we've worked closely with the topic of Taliban trade-ins and how can the European Union interact with the Taliban regime without legitimizing extremism and violation of human rights. Did you know that according to the statistics, in 2020 alone, 760 children were killed in Afghanistan? It's one of the deadliest places in the world to be a child. Our committee is very alarmed by the severe humanitarian crisis that Afghanistan is facing. Afghans, mostly women and children, are being deprived of their basic human rights, such as access to education, health, and freedom altogether. Whilst we acknowledge the Afghan people's right to self-determination and the destruction that the presence of Western forces has brought there, we are also convinced that the European Union's responsibility to make things right. As such, it is necessary that we establish a relationship of trust and cooperation with the people of Afghanistan. As a direct result of this, and considering the various points where intervention is necessary, we come up with various dossiers on the topics of humanitarian aid, education system, lack of wealth, Afghanistan isolation from the world, terrorism, migration, radicalization of religion, and poverty. We believe that the European Union, together with other countries, should continue to provide Afghanistan and its NGOs with the humanitarian aid needed to prevent the worsening of the humanitarian crisis, as well as maintaining relations with third countries in order to welcome and accommodate migrants. These third parties, such as Qatar and United Arab Emirates, will also have a major role as mediators in the negotiations between the European Union and the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Thank you all.
From Italy. The point of this OC is to make young people feel heard, so they have representatives from their age on parliament elections and European Parliament elections, because young people not feel heard is one of the main reasons that they turn to extremist points of views and as well terrorism in an extreme sense. So if they feel heard, they will be less vulnerable, and having representatives from them on the parliament is a great way that we think that will fix this problem. Then Afet made us a question about our OC number 6. So it is there written. As you said, that measure already exists, but we want to reinforce that because there are people there with weapons and there is a greater surveillance on that matter. I'm gonna read what I have. We don't want to restrict anyone from self-defense. We just want to apply a measure that does a background check and does a psychological exam to the people that are buying these kinds of weapons. So these already exist. We want to reinforce them. ITRE made us a question about our OC number 2 about what constitutes terrorist and extremism propaganda. We just want to say that we named these entities and these actors because they are specialists on the matters and they have scientific facts that can guide us, and with an algorithm that with certain words, expression, videos, and photos can determine what content should be and not should be online. We are not forbidding anyone to publish the content, but there are some content which is terrorist propaganda that should not be online. And to that,
if you could please conclude.
Yeah, just one last thing. To that, you also asked about the things that should be and should not be online. I'm giving the example of Instagram that 1 hour after the content is published with the guidelines that I said before, the content is deleted. So we want to reinforce this spirit of eliminating content that should not be online by the guidelines that we've defined before by those entities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look, as you know, the most efficient way to recruit more people to the radical group is through publicity, through online recruiting. I think that everyone knows the expression, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So, how would you solve this topic? Are you thinking about any kind of punishment to the ones that publish that kind of information?
Seek representation on extremist ideologies. We deeply regret the 21 fatal victims that resulted from terrorist attacks on the European Union last year. We note the lamentable deterioration of the people's mental health over the past 2 years, while subject to the greatest pandemic of the century. Realizing that this pandemic has led to an increase of misinformation in relation to social, economic, and political phenomena, we aim to address that issue in our first receive, stating the importance of fact-checkers in providing citizens with better clarification and protection from false information. Our recommendations are aimed on one hand at prevention and on the other hand at damage minimization. From the latter, I can highlight our OC number 4, in which we ask the European Commission to expand its assistance to the Victim Support Europe initiative. Our answer emphasizes the predominant role of education in preventing this evil. For example, in our OCs number 5 and 8, bringing education institutions closer to the problems we are talking about. Fellow delegates, thank you very much. We wanted to know the reason for these suggestions of yours, asking you to explain it better.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Glasses and I've been losing my memory, so forgive me, but I have to read it. Mr. President, honorable members of the board, distinguished guests, teachers, parents, delegates, dear students. I'm Carla Machado, teacher from Camilo Castelo Branco Secondary School in Vila Nova de Famalicão. United in diversity, the motto of the European Union. It signifies all Europeans that come together in the form of the EU to work for peace and prosperity, while at the same time being enriched by the continent's many different cultures, traditions and languages. And here we are, different and together, working, sharing practices, debating, collaborating, enriching each other's thoughts, attitudes, behaviors, with focus on together is better. It is with great joy that I say we are on the right path. These 3 days were the testimony that through organization, collaboration, spirit of unity and the belief in a united and strong Europe to pursue transparent and constructive paths exists. We are facing an absolutely fantastic generation with principles, education, and a sense of duty and cooperation. Once upon a time, masterminds of this world concluded that islands sink faster than archipelagos. Thus, the principle of coming together has come up, and people confirmed. Plato himself spoke of perfection as unified togetherness. Gods themselves became jealous in front of such perfection, and they protested. Since then, humans have been looking for the better of, and on finding it, they celebrate that with a ring. Then continents appeared, unions of countries, people, habits, traditions. Next step, Europe. Europe is such a union. The rope of the European Union is a beautiful metaphor of togetherness. We want to recreate it here in the shape of this EYP. Together we can. Thank you.
ANSA 2021 to be officially closed. Thank you.
As saudades que eu já tinha da minha alegre casinha, tão modesta quanto eu. Meu Deus, como é bom morar no rés do primeiro andar, a contar vindo